News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.
Today, we're really plunging into the complex world of rice policy in the Philippines. Specifically, we're focusing on some very recent, pretty critical decisions about rice imports and tariffs. Our goal? Well, it's to help you quickly grasp the different perspectives, the potential ripple effects of these agricultural and economic shifts.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, actually, how many different threads come together when we talk about something as, fundamental as a nation's staple food.
Absolutely.
We're looking at farmers, consumers, and pretty intricate trade policy. It's all intertwined.
And this past week has seen some really significant movement. So on August 6th, 2025, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took a decisive step. He directed the suspension of all rice importation for 60 days. That starts September 1st, 2025. What was the immediate thinking there?
Well, according to the Presidential Communications Office, Acting Secretary Dave Gomez stated this move is primarily aimed at protecting local farmers. They're currently facing just incredibly low pele prices during their harvest season. So this is seen as a direct response to that immediate struggle.
And this wasn't just an impulsive thing, right?
No, apparently not. It emerged after consultations with cabinet members during the president's 5-day state visit to India.
Right.
And notably, it seems, upon the recommendation of Agriculture Secretary Francisco T. Laurel Jr.
Okay, so that's the import suspension. But while that's underway, there's this whole other conversation sort of simmering beneath the surface, isn't there? The tariff issue.
Exactly.
Dave Gomez, he conveyed that President Marcos believed it wasn't quite time yet to discuss tariff increases on imported rice. He said, we will still see if we need to resort to that. What's the context? Why is talking about tariffs such a kind of contentious point right now?
It's a great question, and to really understand it, we need to look back just a little bit.
Okay.
The Marcos administration, they previously reduced rice tariffs down to 15% from the original 35%. That was with executive order. No, 62 back in June 2024.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Very recently. And that reduction, it was specifically intended to provide relief, for consumers amidst soaring world prices back then.
Makes sense.
And it's currently set to last until 2028, though, importantly, it is subject to review every 4 months. So, yeah, any move to increase them now would be a reversal of that consumer-focused policy.
Yet it's interesting because the Department of Agriculture, just this past Monday, they actually recommended to President Marcos Jr. not just a suspension of imports, but also increased tariffs to protect local farmers given these falling farm gate prices. What did their specific proposal look like for tariffs?
Yeah, that's the interesting counterpoint. Agriculture Secretary Laurel Jr., he had indeed told the House of Representatives that he recommended the Tariff Commission implement a phased increase.
Phased increase.
Back up to the original 35% from the current 15%. And he even proposed a kind of strategic alignment for these adjustments, like timing them with the harvest periods of key suppliers.
Oh, like Vietnam and Pakistan.
Exactly. Vietnam around late September, Pakistan in December. The idea being, to try and mitigate any adverse impact on the local market by timing it just right.
So, okay, we've got the import suspension happening. We've got this ongoing sort of push-pull on tariffs. And then we hear from groups like the Federation of Free Farmers, the FFF.
Yeah, they've been quite vocal.
They really have,
Right.
Criticizing what they call the government's delay in imposing safeguards for local rice farmers.
Yeah.
From their viewpoint, what's the real impact on the ground for these farmers?
Well, the FFF, through Raul Q. Montemayor, they paint a really difficult picture, truly difficult.
How so?
They've cited field reports indicating that prices for freshly harvested pele have just plummeted by 31%.
31%. Wow.
Yeah, down to as low as 8 pesos per kilo from prices just a year ago. Imagine that, investing everything into a harvest and the value just collapses.
That's devastating.
It really is. And this has led to an estimated 54.5 billion pesos drop in farmers' incomes just in the first 6 months of this year.
54.5 billion.
Billion pesos. And the FFF attributes this huge loss to what they describe as the uncontrolled entry of cheap imports.
Okay.
And they also claim it's been made worse by the aggressive rollout of the subsidized 20 pesos per kilo rice program.
So a double hit, potentially.
That's their argument. They're worried many farmers are being pushed into really crippling debt, and, some are even questioning if farming rice is still viable at all.
That's a stark figure, that income loss. But, okay, while protecting farmers is clearly the goal here, there are these significant concerns bubbling up about the supply side, right?
Definitely.
Former Agriculture Undersecretary Fermdi Adriano, for instance, he's warned that suspending imports, or even limiting them to, say, 1 million metric tons, that could trigger a severe supply shortage. How does he back up that kind of strong warning?
His warning really hinges on scale. It's critical. Look, the Philippines imported 4.7 million metric tons of rice last year.
4.7 million.
Okay. And the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, actually predicts an even higher amount this year.
Higher still.
Yeah. So Adriano simply asks, how could the DA possibly fill such a massive supply gap? He states quite directly that, dramatic productivity levels cannot be achieved in a year's time.
Right. You can't just flip a switch on domestic production that quickly.
Exactly. He actually proposed a more, perhaps, nuanced solution. A seasonal tariff system.
How would that work?
Lower tariffs during the off-peak seasons, when local supply is lower, and then higher tariffs during the local harvest periods. Specifically designed, he argues, to protect small farmers without risking a nationwide shortage.
Interesting. A kind of flexible approach.
Right.
But the complexity doesn't stop with just deciding what to do with tariffs, does it? There's the whole question of how it can legally be done.
Oh, absolutely. The legal mechanisms are tricky.
Jason H. Kinglet from Samahang Industria and Agricultura, he pointed out that since Congress is currently in session, the president would technically need to request passage of enabling legislation to revert tariffs back to their original levels.
Meaning he can't just do it by himself right now.
Exactly. The president can only increase tariffs via an executive order when Congress is on recess.
Which isn't until October, right?
Right. And Kinglet emphasizes that waiting is not an option for these farmers, given their current worries about planting because of these really low prices, 8 to 12 pesos, even during the off-peak harvest.
So the timing is crucial, legally speaking. It's interesting, though, to see the different legal avenues being suggested.
Like what?
Well, the FFF's Raul Q. Montemayor, he suggested adjusting tariffs by invoking Republic Act 8800. That's the Safeguard Measures Act.
Okay, what does that allow?
It would authorize the Secretary of Agriculture to impose provisional duties, sort of temporary extra tariffs, on top of the current ones if there's an import surge that harms or threatens local farmers.
So a potential faster route.
Potentially. However, he also noted a critical point, a potential snag. While the option for the president to impose a temporary ban on imports is provided under the amended rice tariffication law,
Yes.
doing so might get flagged as a violation of World Trade Organization rules.
Ah, the international agreements.
Exactly. WTO rules generally prohibit bringing back quantitative import restrictions like bans or quotas once they've been tariffied. So, yeah, it's a bit of a legal minefield.
Okay, so administrative actions, legal challenges. Meanwhile, this whole issue has definitely caught the attention of lawmakers, too.
Yes, in the Senate.
Just this past Monday, two senators, Hontiveros Barraquel and Pangilinan, they filed Senate Joint Resolution number 2. What's the core of that resolution?
Well, this resolution, it calls for terminating the president's delegated authority to adjust tariff rates on rice.
Terminating it, so taking that power away for now.
Effectively, yes, and reverting tariffs straight back to their previous levels, 35% for both in-quota and out-quota imports.
And their justification.
It centers on, and I'm quoting roughly here from the resolution, the plight of Filipino farmers being urgent and demands decisive legislative action to ensure they receive a fair return for their produce and to secure the nation's food future by prioritizing domestic production over unchecked imports. So, a strong push from the legislative side.
And the resolution also proposes that committees, in both chambers, hold caucuses to review the whole situation.
That's right. Looking at everything, market prices, production costs, import volumes, farmer welfare.
And the ultimate goal there seems to be suggesting policies for appropriate and responsive tariffs and import levels.
Exactly. Policies that, in their view, would effectively protect domestic producers, ensure national food security, and promote the long-term viability of the local rice sector.
So, okay, bring this all together,
Yeah.
what does this actually mean for you, the person listening, the person who buys and eats rice?
Well, I think it means really trying to navigate this incredibly delicate, constantly shifting balance between supporting local farmers, which everyone agrees is important, ensuring a stable and affordable food supply, which is also crucial, and somehow doing all that while adhering to international trade agreements. It's tough.
It really is. We've seen how just one presidential directive, the import suspension, can set off this huge ripple effect. It brings all these debates into sharp focus: tariffs, supply chains, farmer welfare, even, legislative authority,
Yeah.
all centered around something as essential as rice.
And this deep dive really highlights, I think, that when it comes to staple foods like this, policy isn't ever a simple choice between, say, option A and option B.
No.
It's a constant, really complex balancing act. And often, the solution for one group, like helping farmers with an import ban, can create these unforeseen challenges for another, like consumers facing potential shortages or higher prices.
Right.
It forces this deeper look at, national priorities versus global realities. Any single policy lever you pull, whether it's a tariff or an import ban, it inevitably creates a new set of pressures somewhere else in the system.
Definitely something to chew on as you think about how these policies impact not just the farming communities, but really every single person who buys rice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
News Talk on Samar News, your go-to podcast for the latest headlines and in-depth discussions. Join us as we unravel the stories that matter most, bringing you insightful commentary and expert analysis. Tune in for thought-provoking conversations that spark dialogue and inspire action. Stay connected with the news that shapes our world, only on News Talk on Samar News.